This will be for the con exercise, reflect functions. So some notes before we begin. If you take the negative of f of x, you're basically multiplying all y values by -1, and the graph will be reflected across the x-axis. And if you take f of negative x, you're basically multiplying all x values by -1, and the graph will be reflected across the y-axis. All right, so when it's multiplied outside by -1 outside the parentheses, it's reflected across x, multiplied by -1 inside the parentheses, it's reflected across y, as you will see. All right, functions f and g are graphed. F is the solid one, g is the dashed one. And f of x is this function here. What is the equation of g? All right, it's not as bad as it looks. All right, if you look at these two functions, we can clearly see it's a mirror image along the y-axis. Okay, the y-axis acts as the mirror, so everything on either side of the y-axis is the same. So clearly, this is reflected across the y-axis. And we said in the notes at the beginning, that is basically f of negative x. So you want to negate everything that's inside the parentheses in order to do that. So if we took what was in these parentheses and multiplied it by -1, that -1 would get distributed to both terms. Okay, so before I look at the answer, I'm going to see if I can get it. I'm going to say -2 log base 2. And in the parentheses, it's going to be -x minus 1. And then we still have plus 3. Okay, hopefully that's one of the choices. Okay, there you go. So, let me see. Okay, previously I said the -1 gets distributed to both terms. I think it just gets distributed to the x. Okay, so that stays as +1. All right, so -x plus 1, that's the same as 1 minus x. -x plus 1 is the same as 1 minus x. So we're looking at answer C. All right, so f of -x, that just means you negate the x, not the 1. So it's just, everything's the same except the x is -x plus 1, which is the same as 1 minus x. So it was answer C. All right, functions f and g are graphed. F is solid and g is the dashed line. All right, what is the equation of g in terms of f? All right, this one's not bad. We can clearly see the reflection here. The x-axis is the mirror. All right, this right here is the mirror. That's the x-axis. So all the y values were multiplied by -1. So everything here became reflected over the x-axis. All right, in order to multiply all y values by -1, you basically take f of x and you multiply that by -1. So that's just going to be negative f of x. All right, so if the original was f of x, the reflection is just negative f of x. So g of x is negative f of x, answer B. This is the graph of the function f of x equals 3rd root of x minus 2. What is the graph of g of x of negative third root of x minus 2? All right. So this one here is just the negative of this one here. All right. So the negative of f of x is just negative, same thing, third root of x minus 2. All right, so all they did was multiply the whole function f of x by negative 1. This is multiplying, if you remember from the notes, this is multiplying all the y values by negative 1. So 8 becomes negative 8. Negative 4 becomes positive 4. That means it's reflected over the x-axis. Okay, so the x-axis is the mirror image, and the new image is basically going to be like that. Okay, it's going to be a mirror image. So it starts at the top left and it goes to the bottom right, and this inflection point at the x-axis is at positive 2. So let's look for that one. Starts top left and goes to the bottom right, passes through at positive 2. We're going to look for that. All right, going to the choices. No. Yes, this looks correct. Starts top left, passes through 2. Let's make sure. Answer C is at negative 2, and answer D is at negative 2. So it's definitely answer B. All right, so if you just pick answer B, that's it. All right, last one. This is the graph of function f. All right, there's function f. And function g is g of x equals negative f of negative x, which is the graph. Okay, there's actually two shifts in this problem. Two reflections, actually. Multiply all the y values by negative 1. That will reflect over the x-axis. Okay, and multiply all the x values by negative 1. That will reflect it over the y-axis. All right, so there's actually two reflections here. And you can just do one at a time. I don't think the order matters. All right, so if I were to use the y-axis as a reflection, I would take this and basically it would be like that. Okay, it would be a reflection. And then reflect this one over the x-axis. So if I took this one here and reflected it, it would basically be like that. All right. So this is what we're looking for on our choices. The one in pink, it's in the second quadrant here. This is quadrant 1. This is quadrant 2. It's in the second quadrant, and it should be just like this, except up here. So let's see. It starts at the bottom left and it goes up to the right, but it's in the second quadrant. All right, it's not A, and it's not B, and it's not C, and it is D, okay? Like we said, bottom left, top right, so it's answer D.